our topic today is about division of labor in households.
Almost every couple I talk to, or most individuals that are in a relationship, this whole invisible labor, emotional labor, who takes on more of just like the noticing and the planning and the coordinating and the behind the scenes stuff.
One person will feel like they're doing absolutely everything in the household and the other person not at all. Or, in terms of cleaning, in terms of responsibilities, in terms of parenting, in terms of balancing money and budgets, because there's no way that two people make exactly the same amount, right?
Yeah.
So there's always this discussion. It kind of goes back to communication, but we're going to get into that.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and guests. The content here should not be taken as medical advice and is for informational purposes only. This podcast also does not establish a standard of care, doctor-patient, or client relationship. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. And because each person is so unique, all listeners are encouraged to connect with counseling and medical professionals for assistance with their personal journey. All people, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved.
Welcome to We're Not Fine. I'm Dr. Talia Jackson.
And I'm Doug Jensen. We thank you for listening every week to our deep and thought-provoking conversations about relationships. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to We're Not Fine.
Friends.
How are you?
You know what? Doing quite well.
Are you?
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. One of the things, though, that I realize is, like, my kids were home for the holiday. They left on Wednesday and Thursday, respectively. My younger left for Wednesday for Chicago. My older left on Thursday for L.A.
Yes.
And, I have this moment afterwards of, because the holidays are so busy, I hosted multiple dinner parties, including, of course.
Do it up. When you do it, you do it up. The decorations and the spread and the vibe.
Yeah, you were at my home for the unveiling.
Which we've been talking about literally every single time. Somehow Nick Harper makes his way into every episode.
Yeah, he's become a part of us.
He has. So,
which our next live event is going to be at his studio in a couple weeks.
That's right.
Cannot wait to do that again. We're going to be doing live, by the way, guys. We're going to be trying to do much more live events, which I love how those look on the YouTubes as well.
And also there's such an energy around doing our interviews live. We're going to be talking to these beautiful sisters, a birth doula and a death doula, about just birth, death, everything in between, relationships.
We've got some fun episodes coming up with some pretty fun people, and we're going to be trying to do live every 4 weeks, every other time. So, and we're going to have invitation kind of open to all of our viewers to come and participate as the space allows. But this is, interesting because our topic today kind of relates to what I was talking about. Like, after everyone leaves for the holiday, I have this kind of sigh of like, okay, I can exhale. I don't have to think about, do I have enough appetizers or meats or cheeses or charcuterie or whatever it is that we're serving. I always have enough cocktail and champagne and Prosecco available.
I have never seen a bar cart as stocked as yours.
Yes.
That was incredible.
My bar cart?
Yes! I've never seen so much liquor in my entire life, and like bitters and aromatics and garnishes, and you even had like a fresh juicer.
Yeah, so my buddy Josh, who lives with me, is a previous bartender, and that's his pro juicer.
That explains it.
That's how we do our bicep curls.
Rob has a pro juicer. He juices
I have an electric one
juice.
too. I have an electric one that supposedly takes out the pulp and everything, but
pulp is good for you.
Not takes out the pulp, takes out the seeds and the wrap, but it tastes a little bitter when it comes out.
Oh, maybe the pulp is good.
I think so.
So the reason I was at Doug's house is because, do you remember how Doug fell in love with Nick Harper's gorgeous piece, Serenity? This like very haunting, beautiful woman. It's very like this grayscale.
It is.
Beautiful, like in the moonlight. And Doug felt this twin spirit soulmate connection.
Did. Yep.
And he's been paying it off for 8 months, 6 months.
6 months. Actually, I did it in 5 because I'm like, I want it to be done by the time my kids leave so they can see it in my home.
And which, it was And she came home to you.
She did come home to me.
And so by we I mean you had a great reveal party. And
we all did.
Hanging party.
Yeah. If you go to my Instagram, which is Douglas L. Jensen.
That's right.
Jensen, you can see it. There's a few posts, as well as Nick Harper. Rogue Buddha Studio, I think official is his, with an underscore of some kind.
Yeah. I think it's Nicholas Harper Fine Art. I think he also has Rogue.
Oh, for God's sakes.
But there is an official in there.
Yeah.
You guys will find him.
We'll find it. But anyway, so it was a great time. Thank you for all the nice comments. I do appreciate like having a spread.
My God, it was such an impressive spread.
Was it? Okay.
So this is the charcuterie that he's talking about. 3 tiers of, it was like macaron, caramels, whatever, like, oh my God. And I sent a picture of the painting and the macaron, the wonderful little French pastries, to my sons. And of course, my eldest was like, could you bring some of those home for me?
Heck yeah.
But he didn't mention how gorgeous the painting was. So I had to.
But he was more concerned with the,
He's like, can you hit me up, bring me some home?
Bruh.
Like 20, bruh.
I'm like, I gotcha, bruh.
Yeah, there's a lot of bruh.
I'm all about the bruh.
And there were 4 different brie cheeses with slightly different flavors. It was so amazing. And the best part was this shrimp and the shrimp cocktail.
Yep. Except
the horseradish.
So I like really horseradish spicy cocktail sauce.
Yeah, your horse kicked my teeth out.
Your nostrils were flaring.
And you know what? Usually people will warn other people about it, but do you know what kind of friends you have?
Yeah.
No one was warning anyone. We were just sitting back and watching and then snickering at people.
But we also I wasn't snickering. I don't take pleasure. I'm not schadenfreudisch.
Oh God, that's right. That's the
I know,
best.
like taking
German
pleasure
really
in. I am German. So
taking pleasure in someone else's pain.
Yeah, I do not do that.
Schadenfreude. Brustwarz.
Okay, yep. That's nipples or something?
Yeah.
Okay. So, moving back outside of your smut language.
Pardonnez-moi.
I can't believe you continuously bring up
breast farts.
Okay, wow.
Sounds like breast farts.
Warts. I heard warts.
It is warts. It's breast warts.
So, yeah, we had this reveal party, but kind of my point is this. 2 things. One is our topic today is about division of labor in households, which I'm going to intro in a second here. But I want to say that one of the things that was really striking is that I have this relief afterwards. Like I don't have to, like I have this like, did everything go well? Did everyone get the gifts they need? I gave my dear friend his gift last night and we're putting the hookah together.
It's really sweet.
We had such a good time last night. So, and we're gonna try the hookah probably some other time soon.
I bet you are.
But I forgot
You forgot the apple tobacco?
I forgot the charcoal.
Oh, I didn't know you needed charcoal for
I don't really understand all of it, but I do realize that. Do I have something on my mustache?
No, I did.
Oh, you just had something on,
on my mustache.
So, but it's interesting because, I have this little kind of like exhale and then I kind of relax a little bit because it's a lot of work, which kind of going back to division of labor. And of course, my sweet dear friend Josh did help me with that evening. He vacuumed the entire house, cut all the vegetables. Like when we work together, we are a hostess.
With the mostest.
With the hostess, with the mostest team. But yes,
division
it's really interesting.
Of labor. And this is, I don't know about you, I'm assuming I can speak for both of us, that almost every couple I talk to or most individuals that are in a relationship, this whole invisible labor, emotional labor, who takes on more of just like the noticing and the planning and the coordinating and the behind the scenes stuff. And we have so much to say about it. We have a couple amazing mailbags, which I actually don't know.
Yeah, I have not read through them actually. So,
we're flying by the seat of our pants.
We kind of love these surprises. Like that's how we work anyway. So when we're therapists, we don't ever know what our people in front of us are going to say.
That's
but you're right, Talia.
Iron Chef therapist.
I love this.
Just throw some raw.
But I do not know
salmon at me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I love.
All right.
Sashimi. Anyway.
Squirrel.
Now I'm hungry.
Squirrel.
I don't have ADHD. You changed it. Here's what I think. I think probably every couple I work with, and it's really interesting because sometimes it's severe. Like one person will feel like they're doing absolutely everything in the household and the other person not at all. Or, in terms of cleaning, in terms of responsibilities, in terms of parenting, in terms of balancing money and budgets, because there's no way that two people make exactly the same amount, right?
Yeah.
So there's always this discussion. It kind of goes back to communication, but we're going to get into that. But, you kind of reference that there are different types of things that people have to deal with in terms of all of those labor things. And, it's interesting that you use the word invisible. I don't know. I mean, the invisible word kind of confuses me because I think a lot of it is stuff that you can see. Like people can point out, do you see the dishes are done?
Yeah, but
do you
that's
see the dishwasher?
A noticing problem, a prioritizing problem. Like that's why this is going to be so interesting because we're going to have a lot to say about all of the different things. When I think of invisible labor, I'm not even just thinking about it in terms of couples and relationships. I think about it in terms of even just like my ADHD, where I don't seem to acknowledge or make time for some of these invisible tasks that are the behind the scenes, maybe like organizing, coordinating.
I think I can see why those feel invisible, but boy, those have a very real outcome to them. Like coordinating carpool or coordinating events or coordinating dinner parties.
Who are you giving the stink eye to right now?
Was it a stink eye? No, I think because I had like 3 of them, it was like...
It's a lot.
It was a lot.
And there's a lot. I mean, I think that the point is we've got to figure out what the invisible labor is and communicate all of those different pieces so that we can have a fair understanding of what there is to do. But this is what a lot of couples come in fighting about.
I agree with that. And, I think one of the pieces that we do as therapists when we're dealing with couples where that's an issue is we kind of try to figure out, like, what is it that might be underlying some of these things, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that contributes to these things? And I think we experience a lot of different things. Like, sometimes I will say that it's almost about differing values.
I think it is. It's like values and prioritizing. Yep. That feels really huge because there's like a threshold issue too. If one person in the partnership feels like counters need to be clean at all times.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Laundry needs to be up off the floor at all times, no exceptions. And the other person is feeling like they much more value spending time in the kitchen and creating presents.
Or with each other, like with family time or couples time or just individual time. I mean, for me, one of the things that I realize is I see patients from Monday through Thursday. And by Thursday night...
You're crispy.
I'm crispy. I'm irrational. I start texting people in ways that are not my typical norm, which I did on Thursday. I was not very patient. Like I think I needed something and I was like just a jackass about it, really. I was an asshole.
It was a little bit of a tantrum.
I had a tantrum. I did because I was like, I need something. I need you. And I don't usually do that. It's weird. But we've talked that through, that friend and I. So I think there's a part of this that, though, these differing values, I want to go back to it because on Thursday night, I know full well, don't clean the house, don't have a party, don't plan anything, don't do anything, just kind of veg out and watch something on Netflix or some other streaming material because I really have to decompress.
And it is really important, I think, to know ourselves and our own capacity because I think that a part of being resentment and disappointment proof is to figure out what your capacity is and what your needs and your desires
really wise statement.
are.
Yep.
So that you can own your own part in it. Because I think what happens is when we're in a good headspace and maybe we have enough resources, we're taking on what feels good to us.
Yep.
But the second we feel exhausted, overwhelmed, then we start really resenting our partner. And I think we start paying attention to, this doesn't feel good.
And
why am I doing this?
And that goes to what we're going to talk today about. What are the implications of this as well?
Do you want to start with the mailbag? We didn't even discuss. Do you want to start with one of the letters about it? And then we'll talk about all the rest as it pertains.
Because it's going to pertain.
It pertains. It's
what an odd word that is,
pertinent.
Pertains.
Is pertinent a word?
I bet pertinent is a part of pertain. Yeah,
Like
I think
a
it is.
pertain?
I'm kind of curious anyway.
Pertinent?
You're the kind of the
You're
grammar
incontinent.
police.
I am.
When I said borrow today and you're like, lend is the word, I'm like, oh, I'll show you what the word is.
Do you know what? That
Grease
is
is the
not
word.
a cute look for me, but I can't help it.
Really?
It's like, oh my God. And I think I've mentioned, I get it from my mother, who was an English teacher, like English is a second language.
Yep.
And she will correct people at restaurants, like the actual servers.
I would spit in that food.
Don't ever go to an Italian restaurant with my mom. And if you do,
Bruschetta.
that's right.
Yep, I
Because
know.
they'll be like, do you want a bruschetta? And she'll be like, don't you mean bruschetta?
That is how you sound
love
too
you, Mom.
when we go out to restaurants.
Because you were like, oh, are you going to borrow her some blah, blah, blah? And I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
that's how I talk.
country bumpkin.
Yeah, I am from the country, actually, rural. I am from the rural area.
You are.
So, yeah, let's do a
do
bag.
it.
Let's do a freaking
Give me a
bag.
bag.
And you know what's interesting is, so neither one of us have read these, and it's kind
No,
of funny
it's my
because
favorite, though.
I do love that. So I might even I hope there's nothing inappropriate on here that I have to have our
really-
lovely Alex edit out.
And we're really trusting our fans,
But-
our listeners.
Yeah,
to
but
write
we really want to say, like, this is an interesting thing. I think anybody who has ever lived with anyone else will understand why this topic comes up. There's no way it kind of gets resolved or addressed without some communication about, like, household responsibilities, right?
And you know what's really not cute?
I don't know.
Seething with resentment. And then once you're seething with resentment and you bring it up, it always sounds like, I do everything and you don't do anything and you suck and I'm the law.
That's how I feel about this podcast.
That I do everything and you. It's okay. I forgive you.
Actually, the opposite. I do all of the guest work. I do all of the... Oh, I'm lying. Are you snorting now?
I'm trying to flare
Let's model
my
how to talk about
nostrils
this. Anyway,
with
let's get to the
rage.
point, shall we?
Yes.
So this is a fiance who's male at 28 years of age and a female who is 24. And they can't overcome the division of household labor. So they write, so both of us grew up very differently. I was raised with an OCD dad who cleaned religiously, and he grew up on a farm. We have been together for about 2 years. I'm frustrated because from my perspective, my man does not clean and barely does anything around the house. We've had conversations about it, and he swears he's trying, but I just don't see it. He says he dusted the shelf, and then it's still covered in dust. I've heard this story before. I've delegated
What is
specific...
that called? Weaponized incompetence.
Oof, that's harsh. I've delegated specific things for him to get done that are super simple and work with his 9-hour daily work schedule. That's also relevant. Washing the dog bowls, doing the laundry, cleaning the shower, which are the only things I've asked him to do. He's thrown some things in the washer, but will walk right past the laundry basket that I set by the washing room, and then I'll have to swap out the clothes and finish the rest. He tried, in capital letters, to clean, but he has no idea how to, capital letters.
Well, that's something too. That's
With
important.
Do you have...
Do I have Tourette's?
With the shelf, he says he did dust it and will do better next time, but how do you mess up dusting a shelf? I've offered to help show him how to clean. Oof, okay, that's possibly patronizing. But he says he's a full-grown man and doesn't need to be taught how to clean.
Or does
Which is
he?
probably true.
Is it though? It sounds like he is not a good duster, Doug.
I'm frustrated because the simple things I ask him to do, he doesn't do, and I end up doing it. Or does he try and you have to redo it the way that you want it to be done? We'll talk about that. I actively do all of the grocery shopping, keep a list of things to buy when it's running low, pay the bills, he Venmos me, mop, vacuum, wash the dogs, take him to the vet, do all the deep cleaning, which takes about 6 hours a week, wash our laundry, pack his lunches, takes the dogs on walks, clean our cars, get oil changes done and any other maintenance on the cars, change the wipers, manage our finances, cook dinner,
My
keep track of the family
God.
calendar, wash the dishes. Ooh, this woman's mad. And I've
Also, you know, that's a lot of invisible stuff. Do you like it when I interrupt you?
I don't.
Do you feel like it's just a dynamic conversation?
I've been the only one doing these things since we met. Mind you, I get up at 6 a.m., go to a corporate job until 6, and get home around 7 after traffic every day, and then I clean. We got problems here. Here's why he's frustrated. He feels like he's trying. He's cleaned the bathroom, and the only thing he didn't do right was dust the shelves, and I only focused on the lack of dusted shelves after he claimed he did dust them. He also didn't move the pile of towels when he mopped the floor and doesn't clean the bathroom mirror or the shower. He feels like I constantly am never happy with all that he does around the house, capital letters, takes out the trash, takes care of the yard, changed the fire alarm battery once, and feeds the dogs in the morning. That counts, because I'm too focused on what he doesn't do. He feels that every time we have a convo about it, he is being put down, and I come at him way too aggressively and make him feel like an employee rather than an equal partner. Oh, no. He also feels that my standards of cleaning are too high and not manageable, and it's unfair for me to hold him to the expectations of clean. Mind you, he gets up at 10 a.m. most days, goes to a sales job, and is home by 8 to 10 p.m. Boy, she's bitter. Resentful is a better word. I just feel like if he weren't here, not that much would change in the household management and cleaning department. I would do everything just the same. I also work a full-time job and take care of the dogs and still find time to clean the place every week. Granted, he works retail hours that suck, so I don't mind taking on most of the housework, but I do everything. All, period, time, period. So we need feedback. How do I communicate better with him without feeling like he's being attacked? I do come off very strong, but we've never yelled at each other. I'm surprised about that. But what we can do is actually make him realize that he doesn't actually do anything around the house. That's enough to take it off my very full plate.
Oh my God, this is so painful. But I do feel like, how many times have you heard the same exact story, word for word?
I have many times. I've heard it many times, which kind of brings me to like, what is it that might be underlying some of this? Like, and I do think, we talked about different values, but I want to go to OCD because she mentioned her dad was OCD. It's possible she is as well. And so the thing about obsessive compulsive people, and whether it's personality or whether it's the actual disorder, is that order and perfection and I've said this to many of my clients, like I used to have people who would move one of the things on my shelf to see how long it took me to realize it, because I just have this sense of order in my office, and if something is moved, I'm like, there's something not right. And I'll look around until I find it. It is really like that. Like somebody turned one of my Buddhas around on my shelf, and I literally saw it out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like I have to have it a certain way.
Okay, so there is one possibility that there's some OCD or some like control issue stuff happening around there.
Which are different.
But okay, so the OCD piece would explain maybe the high bar. It would explain that 80% trying on his part isn't ever going to be enough. And maybe an obsession around noticing and a compulsion to fix. And then the control issues, I don't know how much different that would be, because it's just about like you're half-assing and I want it done correctly. But I think that's only one of 100 possibilities, because like I have heard this same story 1,000 times.
I have too. And one of the things that I do when I hear these stories is that I actually will tell people, so if I walked into your home, because I really want to make this point, like if I walked into the home of any of my couples, they would have a different view. Like I think that's where the more perfectionism or the detail orientation that some people have versus not. I think there's just a reality that, some people are going to see everything that doesn't feel organized. Like even before we start this podcast, and I'm under the understanding that you have ADHD.
What? Who told you?
The squirrel outside.
We're best buds.
But there'll be stuff all over the table. Like there'll be like our tissues, like will be right here. And I'll be like, Talia, can you move all your stuff off the table?
And you know what's so funny about that is that I have a very different perception of you've got your like Starbucks, your Caribou, your Gatorade,
Are
your
you
water,
endorsing
your cold brew. You've got like 7 things over there.
But you only see
and
a
your
cup.
Phone. And okay, here's what's interesting is that like Rob and I, for instance, like we value very different ways of managing the house. So I have...
That's fair.
It's a high value for me to have it decluttered and to have countertops clean and not see a whole bunch of clutter, because that really messes with my sense of well-being, because I feel like if I see a bunch of clutter, my internal headspace. Are you cluttering
I will
my
drink your water.
space? That my internal headspace feels cluttered. And Rob does not value that as much, but he values a deep clean and organizing. And so where I value clean surfaces, he will be the one to be like, let's tackle our junk drawer and take everything out of that junk drawer and put it on the surfaces, which it doesn't feel, and that is so anxiety provoking for me because it might be my ADHD. It might be some, like, I think ADHD and OCD are sort of sometimes two sides of the same coin. I wonder about that. But it's value and prioritizing.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is it is also really possible that our dear friend here, our guy, isn't very efficient in his cleaning.
It's very possible,
annoying.
but guys, I mean, one of the things we hear a lot in our office too is that someone will, the more perfection-oriented or detail-oriented person will go and do it a second time. And I will admit that if somebody's doing my dishes, I look at every pan in particular or whatnot. I look at it before I put it away to make sure that the bottom is totally made sure it's entirely silver again. I have silver potware.
But then how do you feel about the other people?
I don't feel anything.
Right.
I just feel like if I want it a certain way, I have to do it myself.
That's beautiful.
And I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Like I know that I'm like,
you're
again,
owning it.
The bottom of my fry pan, inevitably somebody has not like wiped that off that does my dishes. And I'll be like scouring it. I'm like, I want that to be like totally clean.
That might be.
I do have a little obsessiveness.
But you're not taking it out on anyone else.
I'm not.
So bottom line,
Zero.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I also feel like depending on my headspace, like when I'm asking for help or when people are, and we shouldn't even say help if they're like heads of household, it's like a division of labor. It isn't like help the wife or help the mom or help whomever. And so I do though think about it as when people are doing the kitchen stuff, I always expect it to be sort of 80% done and that I do the extra 20%. But I don't feel angry and resentful because I'm in a good headspace. But when I'm not in a good headspace and I'm really overwhelmed and I've worked a long day and I come home and the kitchen's a disaster and everyone's hungry, whatever it is, I do not have access to that same perspective. And I am resentful and bitter.
Well, which comes to stress levels. And like if you have 20 things going on that day, and especially for people who are raising kids, you're constantly shuffling, and especially if they're in sports like hockey, as my child was. I mean, it is a wild, wild west of like schedules and ice time and away games and whatnot, away weekends, which I had no idea what those were until those beautiful Stillwater hockey people invited me into their culture.
Yay, ponies!
Go ponies! Go ponies! You be red 12. You 12.
What?
Anyway,
is that like
everyone
UB40?
will know what that is.
Yeah, everyone.
Yep. So everyone will know what that is in Stillwater. So here's what I want to say about this, though. And I also want to say that, what needs to be, going back to this specific question, like what I would encourage this person to do is evaluate, like, where is the emotional burden as well? Like, and I think the emotional part of things is like, if you're parenting, like who takes care of the kids' mental health? Who takes care of the kids' developmental stuff? Who takes care of the kids, like checking in and seeing how they're doing and their social?
Sorry, this did not go as planned. You were bonking it. You were bonking the mic.
Well,
I thought I was doing you a favor, but then it collapsed. Your right arm is a problem in our podcast. Sorry.
So,
where were we?
So needless to say, what I want to say is like I'm going to encourage this person to consider everything that happens in this household. My guess is going to be how you talk about your spouse is that he is not also like attuned to what's going on in the household.
Yes.
So the question is, like, you talk about these work schedules, by the way, and 2 working people in a household is tough.
Yeah.
Like the reality is it's tough. And that's why, in decades gone back, it was nice to have someone to manage a household and manage grocery shopping and all these things. I cannot do something after a 12-hour day. It's never going to happen.
If there's a stay-at-home person.
I'm going to do a DoorDash delivery of
me
whatever
too.
I'm hungry for. And I honestly now have come to like looking at the food options and being like, okay, that's where I salivated a little bit, so I'm going to order the ramen, or I'm going to order the chicken, or I'm going to order pizza.
But you also don't have to consider like the whole family anymore. So you have the freedom.
Oof, such a change. It really is.
It's a change, right? And I think that one of the most important things that you said is like from the invisible piece is I think what's missing. This is the difference between maybe the person that does the lion's share of the invisible work versus the one who is just being asked to take on tasks, is there is in like a proactive noticing that happens, but only for the person that feels like they're taking on the lion's share. So in this particular case, which I feel like is in most couples, there's one person that somehow has an understanding of the 2,000 things that are necessary to run a home, to have a meal plan, to go grocery shopping, the carpools, the practices, the snacks, the gym bags, whatever it is. And then there's the person who is just being asked to complete simple tasks, which he still can't seem to perfect or do well enough. And so...
Well, and I want to ask him, like, I wish I could ask him, like, what's your story on this? Like, that's what I'll do with a couple. I'll make sure, because really one thing that you have as an option is relationship therapy. Like, a lot of times this is a topic. Like, when couples come in, as most people know, I just hit this microphone again, I have people list every resentment, everything that feels unresolved, everything they need to address that has not been reach to some satisfying conclusion, write everything down. And people always like, can I get a big notebook? Yeah, of course you can get a big notebook, because we have to cover everything and we have to get past these things. But if this is the issue, I'm going to ask both parties, like, what is your perception of this? If this guy said, I did dust the shelves, but chances are that Swiffer, left a mark or left whatever it is. And, the person that wrote this is probably going to notice that, right? They're going to notice what was not done. So I think there's a piece of this that you're really evaluating, like, what's real about this, what's not real, what part is your OCD tendencies or your obsessive compulsive tendencies, what part on his part might be something else. And I want to just add, I mean, we've talked a little bit about OCD here and obsessive compulsiveness, but there's ADHD and the how to manage that, but there's also depression and anxiety. And one of the symptoms of depression is oftentimes low motivation, low energy, lethargy. And so when I fatigue, when I think about those symptoms, I'm not likely. And there have been times absolutely where I feel depressed. I feel low energy. I feel fatigued. I feel like I've got burnout. And it's kind of like when my kids left afterwards, I looked at the dinner party from Tuesday where we did the installation of the art. The reality is there was a point at which I just kind of thought, I'm just going to lay on the couch and watch something stupid.
Which was wise. And it's also, I mean, do you guys remember our episode 2 episodes ago with Dr. Kate Henry and the
productivity,
slow productivity. And she talks about, chronic illness and mental health issues. And basically that spoon theory that it's like a capacity, a limitation. You only have a certain number of spoons each day. And depending on how you're feeling mentally and emotionally, you might not have the capacity. So what I hear in this couple and a lot of other couples is the person who is seen as never doing enough might be completely at capacity. But I wanted to bring up a couple of interesting things I found in this article.
Tell me.
It was a Psychology Today article about the division of labor with couples. And I thought, 4 findings that I thought were really interesting that really have to do with what we're talking about. One is couples don't seem to ever agree on who's doing more.
100%.
There's a perception issue, and each person in a couple tends to overestimate how much they're doing and underestimate how much their partner is doing. And they have actually done studies and counted the number of hours that each person is doing the household, the child care tasks, and then they have to estimate what it was, and it's just like across the board. Everyone seems to think they're doing more.
Which is fascinating, right?
It's fascinating. The second thing that I thought was really interesting is that it's cultural, and you will find your circumstances and the amount of labor you're doing either acceptable or unacceptable, depending on what your friend group or the other people in similar situations to you, if it's like a 30-something heterosexual couple with 2 toddlers, if it is a same-sex couple with, teenagers, and then you'll be looking at this other couple and be like, oh, am I doing more or less? Do they have a better scenario than us?
There's also like family of origin learning. So I grew up in a home that oftentimes had some hoarding. And actually my mother was a hoarder. So I have found myself kind of at times not knowing how to organize my home. I've figured it out for the most part.
Which is kind of an underbelly of OCD too, isn't it? I mean, hoarding, isn't it, under this umbrella?
Well, it's that it is a compulsion, to hold on to things that have some sort of emotional attachment, right? And that's very hard for people who don't experience that. Like my younger is so easily getting rid of everything, like doesn't want some of their Christmas gifts oftentimes, wants to leave them at home, like I'm never going to use that.
Do you think that's like a scarcity versus abundance mindset, or maybe somebody who grew up in poverty?
Maybe, of course.
Or
I think so.
It's anxiety too. There's so many.
Like I had a hard time getting rid of things because I did grow up with not a lot of money, and my mother was a hoarder, and it's been hard for me to get rid of things. I really only have one area of my home. It's my basement. I have an old home, so the basement is not.
It's gorgeous.
It's not livable.
Your home is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
I loved getting to see it.
Thank you so much. Here's what I want to say about this too. So I want to go back to like some strategies because this woman is struggling. Like, so what we're talking about is you have to understand kind of the underlying pieces of this and really give some credence and give some thought. And maybe you do need a mental health professional to help, but someone that really can help understand like what is going on for him, what is going on for you. Are these likely, because I have told a number of my clients, do not expect your partner to be you. Do not expect your partner to see that dust. Do not expect them to see that cup that's sitting in the middle of the living room. Do not expect that. Or the ring that got put on the furniture or whatever. Like, just don't expect that from people who do not see the world the way that you do.
And the noticers get really resentful of the non-noticers.
Like, how can you not see that?
How can you not see that?
Or how can you not see that that dish was not clean?
Right.
That went through the dishwasher even. So that's number one. Like, have realistic expectations about things based on what you both bring to that table. But here's what I would do. I would 100%, like I have couples that have done chore lists. They have them in the kitchen, like meal planning, for example. Like if you want to split that halfway and decide what it is that both of you really want to do. Like I'm better at some things than I'm not. And it's been interesting to live with this friend of mine because we kind of share everything. We do things together. And the reality is he's much better at details. Like he won't I realized about a day into him moving in that he does not leave any dish in the sink.
Wow.
Can't.
Amazing.
Like he literally would keep washing things after we ate and I'm like, what are you doing?
That's a good kind of OCD. That's the kind I want.
I don't. Like, I can't even imagine. So I let them all kind of build up and then I'll do them all at once, right?
My mom was like that, or is like that if she has people over, she will never sit down and eat at the dinner table with anyone else because she's cleaning everything up in the sink. There won't be a single dish.
That's fascinating.
And she cannot sit down.
I also have a farm sink, and it has a grate on the bottom, right? And I let the crap on the bottom just sit there after I've done the dishes, even if it doesn't.
Does that drive him nuts?
He will take that grill off and just kind of scour it. I'm like, okay. And then I start to feel like I'm not doing enough. I've told him, I said, stop doing that. I'm not doing equal amounts, and he doesn't care. So there's no resentment building.
That's good. Well, because you're also a good communicator.
I'm a good communicator, and I do other things. Like I take care of other things.
That's right.
So that's kind of where, things can work even in a friendship situation. That's not a spousal situation. But I think chore lists are really helpful because then it's on there. And once a week, I'm also huge, as everybody knows, on household meetings. Like even if it's just you and somebody else, and there's any sort of issue that has to be addressed, like, the sharing of responsibilities, have a weekly meeting. And that weekly meeting can be where you kind of take a look at that list and say, so how did it go this week? And where did things not go? What's happening in this relationship, though, and this is part of the concern, is that I think he's starting to feel blamed and shamed and diminished and frustrated. Right. And like he's always probably walking on eggshells. Like, I did clean that. And I do not encourage relationships to have dynamics where the person's constantly like, see what I did? See what I did? Taking pictures of things. And I don't like it. It becomes really awful.
When we're seeing in like what people are overestimating how much they're doing and underestimating how much their partners are doing. Yep. And so it could just be you are feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. In that moment, you're not getting a particular need met, or you feel enraged because this is what happens a lot with people. Yeah. You're doing something and you see your partner sitting on the couch or not doing something, and then all you can do is see everything that's still undone.
And the other thing that's happened here is that this has gone on for some time, and so there is this building of resentment. Like when she listed everything she does, I'm like, oh.
And somebody's been like keeping that list.
Oh, absolutely. And you keep that list, and then you're looking at it all the time because you're not feeling like you're getting what you need. So we have to find a way in that situation to balance it out, and it's not going to look maybe the way you want. Do not expect him to clean the way you do. Do not expect him to do the tasks the way you do. When you get home after your long day, I don't know what you do for a living. I did not hear that.
There's a salesperson and a corporate person.
Okay, so she must be the corporate person because he's retail or something?
And it's like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. kind of. And he's I don't know, some sort of retail because he works from 10 to 10 sometimes.
Oof. I'm sorry, 10 to 10 regardless of what job you do. That is like, get home and just relax, right? Like,
which should
and get some sleep, by the way. Where do you get sleep?
Should be prioritized. Yep. It's just like, so these weekly meetings, I also think they are so brilliant. And it's just like, let's keep a line of communication open about what's working and what's not working, which if you have any kind of job, not really like us, but if you have any kind of job where you work on a team or you've got a manager or a boss, I'm willing to bet you have one-on-one meetings, you have team meetings.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Why don't we have that for the most important relationships in our lives?
So here's where we don't want it to go. We also don't want a parent-child dynamic where you're always following up on him, and we don't want a boss-employee dynamic. You actually reference this. We do not want that, but the model that Talia is talking about is good. Like, make sure that there's accountability, make sure there's follow-up. And if there's not accountability, so this happens too, like, we agreed on something and he didn't follow through. He or she didn't follow through. And of course, I always say, let's figure out why. Like, what was going on for you? Like, at some point, his perception of this and like what he wants to do is a critical part of like understanding and communicating. Like, these are his values, these are his priorities. Like, if he said, the biggest thing for me is doing the dishes. I'm just going to pick it. Or I love the dishwasher. It's fun. Like, find the stuff that you two want to do. And if nobody wants to do anything, then you have to divvy it up anyway. But he does have to be accountable. I would say to him in this situation, so you have to do what you say you're going to do. If you don't want to do it, if you don't think you're going to do it, or if you're worried about doing it in a way that's haphazard or half-assed, and you know she's going to come back and do it herself, that's an issue that has to be discussed. That's right. And I would encourage the writer here to accept something that's not quite right. Like, walk away from something that's not done exactly the way you want because he's doing it the way that works for him.
And then find gratitude and value his work as well.
Yeah.
So there's this amazing woman who basically has created a game about this. There was a documentary. It's called Fair Play. Her name is Eve Rodsky.
I love that name.
I mean, it's incredible. And I hear a lot of people talking about it. And she created playing cards. So it's exactly what Doug is talking about in terms of let's actually have a meeting and go through all of the different tasks. And what's interesting about her take on it is it's less of a division of labor per each activity or care task that needs to be done. Yep. It's more like if one of the cards is baseball, for instance, that doesn't just mean I'm going to take the kids to baseball. What it means is I'm going to make sure, to figure out what that snack list is when we're bringing snack. I'm going to figure out the carpool. I'm going to make sure every single baseball activity is on our family calendar. I'm in charge of the rides. I'm in charge of making sure that bag is packed. Right? It's like that's all of the invisible labor that goes behind I've got baseball.
Yep.
And so this is what she said. There are 4 rules to this.
Oh.
And it's intuitive once you think about it, but it's also kind of revolutionary. So the first one she says is, the first thing you have to understand is all time is created equal. So this is an exercise in valuing our own time, but also each other's time, because we tend to not value our spouse's time, our partner's time as much as
because we're in our own
value
world.
Our own.
Yep.
Exactly. So we're incredibly aware of every minute we are spending on something that feels like it's for the family versus all of the minutes they're spending. Which it's just a new way of seeing it, really. And what did I want to say about this? It says the reality is that many straight couples, the mental load continues to fall on the female partner as the list maker, planner, household manager, until everyone realizes that time is a limited commodity for both. Everyone has 24 hours in a day.
And I will say, this is where I always struggle with those gender stereotypes, because in my household, between my co-parent, my children's mother and I,
yes,
like if there's a family trip, if there's holiday planning,
right,
I do the majority by a long shot. She would gladly admit that. Because I do have that desire. Like when we went to Japan with our kids together, I made sure I did the reservations. I made sure to take care of the details of like getting from place to place and figuring some things out.
Some of this is just like good executive functioning and being the noticer.
100%.
But you were also a parentified child. You know what I mean? Like, you never really were a kid.
That is correct.
You probably did a lot of noticing of what needed to be done.
Oh, I didn't just do noticing. As my patients know, I call it scanning.
Yeah.
Like from an early age, when I did not always have safety in my home, I literally would scan constantly, like, what's going on? And I probably did some things like cleaning to try to make things easier in my household, or to make my mom feel better, given who she was, which was a very complicated person with some mental health issues. So I probably compensated that way. However, it doesn't always translate. Like I want to say, and this is a really interesting thing that everyone needs to consider, we have multiple things that we're doing because of this podcast. And I have found myself with my practice and the podcast and some other projects that we have going on, I just don't have a lot of time. And so I literally don't, I have come to a place where I really do need a housekeeper, and how privileged that is of me to be able to do that. But that's the bottom line here, is that I think there's a point at which you have to really evaluate, like, how much, and this goes back to the spoon analogy that our productivity person talked about. Like, I don't have spoons afterwards sometimes.
No, and you've got a certain amount on, it's almost like you have a certain amount weekly.
Yeah.
And that Monday you're a completely different person than Thursday night.
And I know absolutely, like, it takes me until Thursday night, and then when I'm done, I turn off my Zoom, because I do Zooms on Thursday, telehealth.
I love that. You do that.
And I literally just kind of sit there for a second, like, okay, now I'm done. Now what do I need to do? Do I need a cocktail? Because I love a gin and tonic at the end of my day, regardless of the season.
And you know what also is an interesting piece of this that you were talking about? Like, we do try to avoid the gender stereotypes.
We do.
As much as we possibly can. And this does come from research that was mostly with heterosexual couples, she said.
Yep.
But what she did say is that there's also a lot of research happening with same-sex couples right now, and there seems to be a more equal division of labor.
I think that's probably true. I think about all the things, and socialization comes into this, right? So if your mother was the person that did the details and took care of the groceries and took care of the kitchen and took care of the shopping, like when I think about my grandparents in particular, my grandma did all the cooking, did all of the gardening, did all of the canning. We even chopped our own chickens up to make our own chickens.
Wow. Ooh.
They run around after their head gets cut
Oh
off.
My God.
It's very strange.
I know, I've heard that.
And there's blood. Anyway. So what I would say, What I would say, and by the way, our AV guy John makes the best cold brew. It's so smooth. I'm like enjoying it. I just shout out to John. Thank you so much.
Shout out to John.
I know, hugely good. Anyways, but that's the thing. Like, really, what we're talking about is make sure you're aware of the underlying pieces. But we've talked about the card game. We've talked about making a chore list. We've talked about going to therapy if you need to understand and really understand what's going on here. And you can go to therapy with just this issue, by the way, which I will say is not the only issue that's going to come up. There's other issues then that are related in terms of communication. Like I would say that I'm hoping you have communicated in a gentle, loving, supportive, give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm always big on starting there. Like give him the benefit of the doubt. Like say I did not see that this was dusted. You did dust. Can we take a look at it? Like you could, it's hopefully not too patronizing to say, so this is what I see when I see this. What do you see this? When you see this?
It's a little patronizing, but also I don't know a lot of good ways to communicate like that is a half-assed job.
And I wouldn't judge it. I would just say, so this is what it looks like for me. And the bottom line is, and I have eventually gotten to this place with clients, like you might just have to do it.
Right.
Like maybe that's your thing.
Or maybe that's not, right, that might not be that person's skill set.
Yeah.
I want to like run through the other 3 rules of Eve Rodsky real quick because I think it's pretty great.
Yeah.
Number 2, I bet you would never consider this to be a part of a division of labor, but this I think is where the resentment builds. Reclaim your right to be interesting. So a lot of the resentment comes from, oh, how fun for you that you get to still go, do jujitsu and sit on the couch and watch a game and have a cocktail while this isn't.
Go Wild. They won last night. Anyway.
But if you are thinking about it as both of you deserve to reclaim what's interesting and fun about you, when you're only working on housework and chores and things like that, it steals your ability to lean into the things that you love to do. And if you're a healthy, happy person, you're going to be less resentful. And it's also just, I'd like 3 hours a week to do blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'd like you to have 3 hours a week, or like, let's negotiate that time. Number 3, start where you are now, not who you wish you were, who you wish your partner was, assuming that they should be anticipating all of your needs. It's more like, what is my specific intention for asking to look again at the list of chores and renegotiate? Like, what do I want? Do I just want recognition? Do I want to make this person feel badly about themselves? Do I just need a little more help in the kitchen? Do I just want this person to be noticing more than they're noticing? Like, why are we bringing this up? What is the goal around it? So it isn't just, I do everything, you do nothing, you suck. And the last one, unless you have anything to say about it.
I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I absolutely...
Say it.
Really?
Now. Nope, too late. Window closed.
In fact, I won't say anything if you order me around, because I do not do well being told what to do, as we know.
Say less.
Oh, then I'm going to talk a lot, and I'm just going to keep talking until there's no...
Please don't tell me what you're thinking about this topic.
Oh, you're doing a little paradoxical approach to Doug's work. Yeah, I mean, I think how you approach somebody is really critical, and I think one of the things I love about what that rule is that it's about taking a look at, like, what is your intent, what is your motivation, and communicating that honestly. And what I would say to this, person in particular, like, let your partner know, I'm actually growing resentful, and I don't know how to stop it, and I don't want to go after you, and I don't want to be critical, and I don't want to be blaming, and I don't want to be shaming, and I don't want to be that thing. I don't know how to approach you. Is there a way? Because you can ask, like, is there something that I can do that would be helpful for you to be able to help me out a little bit? Because go ahead.
No, you go.
That was what I think. I mean, I think there's a point at which you really want to communicate as directly as you can in not a snarky, passive-aggressive way, and the more time that goes on, or the more this pattern is a thing. And I will say that some people kind of figure out years into the routine, I don't fucking want to do this way anymore. Like, I really need a change. I need to not take on all of this stuff. Or can you, I started taking my kid to hockey every night, but can you take them half the time? I'm exhausted by it. And I don't like all the other parents.
That feels like a good reason to hand that off. What I was going to say is, I what you said, and I agree, that is the conversation that needs to happen. And one tip that might be helpful for everybody who's considering bringing their partner in to have the conversation about renegotiating, it can be very disarming and not critical and snarky to start with owning your own part in it.
Always,
like,
right?
I feel, I might be overly critical. I might be extra exhausted right now. I might have too high expectations. I think I may have been assuming that you could read my mind and that you were noticing and just choosing not to do it.
Yeah.
So like owning your co-creation in that dynamic, I think would be a good way to disarm. Fourth and final, did you want to say something? No. Fourth and final Eve Grodsky fair play rule that I really liked is establish your values and standards, which I think is a conversation most couples never have.
I agree.
And it's just what you started saying of one person really values a clean countertop and one person really values like a deeply clean and organized, efficient space or
drawer,
say
desk
it out
drawer,
loud.
or whatnot. That's it. I mean, what we're really saying is what it kind of comes back to in relationships all the time is you have to communicate. And the earlier you communicate and the more clearly you own your experience and you say, I feel this instead of you don't do anything. I mean, it's a very different way of approaching something. So it goes back to communication strategies and doing that in a healthy way. So again, I want to, and we're probably only get to one mailbag today because this is kind of covering everything for us. But, I wish for you to be able, and I appreciate that you wrote in. Thank you so much because I think it's a really, really helpful thing to discuss that affects a lot of people. I see all of your stuff again.
It's very organized chaos over here.
Is it? But the thing about it is you want to communicate directly. You want to really understand all the dynamics. But the word compromise has not been talked about here enough. Like, I think we have to find a way to reach like some level of like, I can live with this. This is enough for me. I can live with the dishes being done. I'm not going to use a fork that still has crud on it if it's not cleaned entirely. But I might just rinse it out again because people miss things too.
That's right.
And
I'm the benefit of the doubt.
Always benefit of the doubt.
And I also feel like maybe the best course of action, because when I talk to these couples, I'm sure when you talk to your couples, what each one of them is really craving deep down is just an honoring and a valuing of what they are doing. Because as soon as you're saying you're not doing enough, it negates all of the things they are doing. And so if you do seem to take pride in being the noticer, but you're only noticing what you are doing and what your partner's not doing, maybe start to notice all of the things that they're doing and start commenting and being grateful for the work your partner is doing. That will get you a lot further in this conversation.
So one of the things we haven't talked about too is like all of the other facets of any relationship. Income, like, and when you talk about being grateful, like, obviously you both are contributing to the budget, but if you're also feeling like you're the breadwinner, like, I think there's a lot of different ways to evaluate equity and mutuality and reciprocity in a relationship. And I really do think that the best relationships have a real sense that both people are contributing equally.
That's right.
So is he bringing in money that's helpful, and doing his part of that, in terms of like the occupational piece, like an educational piece, like are you two at some kind of level of like you both are contributing in that way? But I want to go to emotional burden for a second, because I think the person that constantly, and I think it's you in this situation, like he's probably not going to say, can we talk about the house cleaning and can we talk about chores? So if you feel like you're always the person bringing shit up as well, we have a problem.
Which is the invisible labor well.
It is. Mm-hmm. And if you always feel like you're having to bring things up and you're having to negotiate and you're having to compromise and you're having to follow up on things that are not taken care of, that's adding on to this as well. So there's various ways that this occurs. And I think there's something, when you talk about your dad being OCD, there's something that tells me maybe there's some genetic piece to this where you learned it or you experience it yourself from a brain place, an anxiety place. But that's the piece. Like you have to kind of let yourself own your piece of it, as you've said really beautifully in that discussion. Like I think you have to own your part of What are your expectations? What are your goals? And you do not want to look at your partner as lazy or
That's right.
unable or whatever without really understanding what's going on for him.
And even if that is the only thing that you take away from today's episode is that benefit of the doubt, or if you're feeling really resentful, angry, critical, just take a moment and think about how to own your own part in it, because that will more likely than not lead to a more productive, loving conversation where your partner will be more open to the idea of taking on a little bit more or seeing things differently. Definitely start with what you're bringing to the table and what you're noticing, all the good things that they are doing.
You know, I want to say something else too. Like, one of the things that I'm very struck by is sometimes I work with couples where, you know, this person might go in for individual therapy and kind of work through this and kind of figure it out. If you're doing that work and your partner is not doing that work, what I've noticed is that a lot of couples drift and kind of just have a bigger differential in terms of their capacity and their skill level and their emotional intelligence and awareness and insight. If one of you is doing work and the other person isn't, you know, I always hearken back to my first day of graduate school where my professor said half of you will not be with your partners at the end of this program.
Same.
And it was true.
Yeah.
I was one of those.
You
know?
Sometimes you outgrow.
And so if this person is doing their work and they're trying to figure this out and they go to individual therapy and they're like mastering sort of, you know, their own kind of emotional awareness and
brilliant.
behavior.
Because even if it's like what I say to, you know, my clients with like OCD or depression or anxiety or, you know, ADHD or all of the things, it's an explanation.
It is.
But it's also not necessarily an excuse. So
it's not.
It is up to us, and I say the same thing all the time, but it is 100% up to us to be managing whatever cards we were dealt. So yes, I have ADHD. Is it my fault? No, but it's my responsibility. So what does that even mean? It means that I'm working with shorter sticks than maybe the rest of people in terms of my capacity to think longer term, have executive functioning, memory.
I think it's because you spent too much time at First Avenue.
Oh my God, I knew it was
so I
something.
think you had too much stimulation in it.
And maybe
I'm kidding,
it was
that's not
like
how it happens.
Teenage marijuana use.
Oh boy, do you want to talk
something.
about your teenage drug use?
Yeah, I just don't remember because my brain is
Because you were on drugs.
I actually...
That's not funny.
No, it wasn't. And I actually did not have any substance use issues. You know, just a little bong on the weekends.
Does anybody notice how easy it is for me to bring up a new topic and then she'll run with that?
Where was I? I was saying something life-changing. Do you
no,
remember?
I don't.
Oh, ADHD. But I managed, as you could tell, really well. I have an ADHD coach and I'm on meds and I do a lot of my own learning and research about, stop looking at me like that, how to have systems and routines.
I'm looking at you automatically like a patient now. Tell me more.
Oh, I'll stroke my goatee and look at you with pity. Is that
I'm
what
so
you're
sorry,
doing right
that
now?
must be hard.
Is that why they pay you the big bucks?
Yeah. So I hope this was helpful. And,
Yes.
you know, I swear, again, even if you're in a roommate situation in a college dorm, that's funny, my college roommate and BFF, Darren.
I love Darren.
He's very organized in his home. His home is spotless.
It is? I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, spotless and really, really good taste.
Oh, wow.
But-
Go Darren.
Oh, yeah, he's really good taste. You should see his home. Anyway, so that's the thing, guys. I hope this is helpful. And really, this division of labor, we could go on and on about other pieces too. And really, you know, a piece that we are discussing here is that it goes into all different categories. And you have to take a look at every part of your relationship if this is an issue and really evaluate it fairly and as openly as you can.
That's
We
right.
wish you the best.
It'll be a game changer. And if you did find value in today's episode,
Or you want to see my art.
Or you, oh yeah. Hop on the Insta, Dr. Talia Jackson. We're not fine. I can't remember if it's We're Not Fine Pod or We're Not Fine. I
think it's We're
time.
Not Fine Pod.
And
which stands for podcast.
Douglas with an E-N. Plus, you guys, we're on YouTube, and I kind of think that people are into it.
Yeah, we're raising our subscriber level. Thank you to our producer, Supak, who is doing, I think, they're called shorts.
Yes.
Those are things I wear in the summer months and
sometimes
to the gym.
in the winter months.
And a lot in the winter months,
I've seen
actually.
a lot of your knees in my life. Knees
what do you
and
think
below.
about them?
They're really good-looking knees.
Thank you
Real
so much.
smooth.
So, yes, you were saying, did you go through the Instacart?
What was I saying? Oh, do you want to hop on and listen to us on whatever platform you're already listening to us this second, and maybe pull over your car or stop on this walk that you're on right now, stop folding laundry and washing dishes, and
Or listen while you're doing those.
subscribe, rate, review.
Yeah. Thank you to all the comments we're getting on YouTube right away. We want to acknowledge it's really, really great to hear from you and get your feedback on it. And again, go to we'renotfine.com, no apostrophe needed. And if you have any questions in your life, mental health, relationships, whatever it is, we have a place for you to either anonymously or put your name in, ask us any questions, and we're delighted to review them on the podcast.
Like it's our
we
favorite
love hearing
thing.
from you. Oh my God. And everyone's life is so different. We have so many different possibilities. So thank you for all of you who have written in, and we are going to encourage you to keep doing that.
We're not fine. I'm putting you on the spot. Now. But it better be good.
I know. I want to say something about the cold brew, but I can't figure it out.
But at least your butt is as smooth as John's cold brew.
That's not necessarily the case.
Bumpy, hairy.
Oof.